Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 117 of our trip around the United States. This morning we're getting things kicked off here in Iowa Falls, and in just a moment we're going to take a walk down and check out the falls for themselves. We're perched just above it on the rim of the valley going down these steps, and you're going to get to see those in just a second too. Today, like yesterday, is a lot shorter on the miles. We only have 190 miles to cover. From here in Iowa Falls, we're going to go up north to the northern edge of Iowa, hook east just a little bit, and then start dropping south again. Our goal for the day is Cedar Falls and Waterloo, and once we get there, we know we're not going to have any more time. Our target list is completely overbloated today. This part of the route has so many interesting geocaches and so many things to see that even cutting down to 190 miles, there's no way we're going to have time for it all. So as we move through the route, we're going to have to pick and choose what we're going to keep and what we're going to get rid of, and hopefully get ourselves down to a good time so we can make it into Cedar Falls at a decent hour with a little bit of daylight on our side. There's only one way to find out, so let's get this adventure started. Come on, let's go. Iowa Falls within Hardin County boasts a population of around 5,000. It is nestled along the banks of the Iowa River at a point where it flows through a limestone gorge 70 feet deep between bluffs that rise up another 50 feet. The best way to get to see the falls is to park in Jones Park and take the little staircase right across the bridge. Be warned, however, that while beautiful, the falls are not what they used to be. The natural waterfalls were lost to progress with the construction of the Iowa Falls Hydro Plant in 1926. Once known as the Rapids of the Iowa, the falls are now submerged by a dam that stands at 26 feet high and stretches to 200 feet long, serving as a hydroelectric power station for the area. This morning's agenda was jam-packed with earth caches. This gave Aichan and I an opportunity to walk on several different trails to track down the subjects of these earth caches. Each one was a welcome opportunity to stretch our legs between finds and appreciate the natural beauty found here in northern Iowa. One of the biggest of these earth caches that we were able to complete was located at Nora Springs with a population of around 1,370. After a quick stop by the Veterans Memorial, we scooted over to the City Park in Boulder to check it out for ourselves. As I've said before, every day comes with its own unique flavor. But to really be able to appreciate today's flavor, first we have to have an earth science lesson to understand what we're looking at. What you see behind me, it's just a rock, right? I mean, you'd pass it right by on the street and you'd go, oh, that's a big rock, and then move on. But in reality, these are very important keys to understanding our geological past. These are glacial erratics. They're named erratic because they're not like the other rocks in an area. They are errant. Glacial erratics were moved over time by glaciers. When glaciers advance, they grow in size, they accumulate that snow material like we've talked about before, they scoop up material as they move forward. Small pebbles up to large rocks like this one. They go forward to wherever they're going to go, and then they stop. If they begin to retreat, they melt down. They deposit those materials that they've picked up. Iowa has been part of 3 glacial periods over time. Each of those glacial periods we've been able to identify by erratics, just like this one. We know that the last glacial period was about 15,000 years ago because we were able to identify rocks just like this that were picked up and moved as an erratic to a new area, and we could trace back where it had come from and when it had come from there. It's been very interesting to be able to move through this part of Iowa and go through one glacial erratic after the next and be able to see the differences in the rocks and which glacial period they might have originated from. It's also really cool that the owners of each of these earth caches set them up so that people could appreciate huge specimens like this, and they can get pretty big. A lot of glacial erratics are small pebbles that you'd never think twice about, but they can get up to several tons large. There's some very big erratics around the area, like White Rock in Canada. And that's the flavor of the day. I hope you might have learned a little something. Now let's get back to geocaching. This lonely soldier stands guard over the next part of our adventure as we make our way into Spring Park within Osage. Bordered on one side by the Cedar River, this is a surprisingly wooded park that is filled to the brim with elm trees. As you can tell, at this time of year, the elms have turned into a deep shade of yellow, which makes this an amazingly beautiful drive all the way into the heart of the park. When you reach the campgrounds at the end of the road, you can find the namesake for this park, which is a natural spring that bubbles up into an iron cistern. The spring is tested periodically to ensure that the cool and refreshing water is always safe to drink. Normally, I would refill my water supply whenever we come across a natural spring, but we were able to load up in Des Moines, so we're good to go right now. As with most days on the road, we passed through a number of small towns that came and went in our rearview mirror. But when we spotted a covered bridge running over Main Street in Elma, we had to stop off and take a better look. And it's little touches like this that can make small towns with declining populations remain appealing to visitors.
We have stopped and done a lot of little free library geocaches, and I'll continue to stop for them because I love these. Now normally the geocache is located inside of the little free library. Sometimes it'll be up top there, sometimes it'll be a book inside. This one is different. Different is fun, sometimes. This time around, they have built the geocache into the back of the structure. You have to know the code to open the lock, and look at that. The whole back side is dedicated to the geocache. How cool is this?
On the south lawn of the courthouse in New Hampton, you can find the Chickasaw County Veterans Memorial. Dedicated on November 11th of 2013, this is one of the largest veterans memorials we've seen in quite some time. 10 black granite walls flank the east and west sides of the memorial, inscribed with the names of local veterans from all wars as well as peacetime. The 2 black granite obelisks standing opposite of the entryway list the names of service members who were killed in action. All centered around a young woman and a child holding a folded American flag, symbolizing the loss of a loved one. Upon reaching Nasua, one of the first things you have to do is visit the Little Brown Church, which was completed in 1864 and made famous by a song called "The Church in the Wild." Oddly enough, the song was actually written in 1857 following a coach ride that William Pitts had taken. When he returned to that same area in 1862, he discovered that a church was being erected right where he had imagined it. And knowing that there was a tank located within Nashua, we had to make a trip over to Veterans Memorial Park. Among other things, this park is a destination for fishermen, of which there were plenty while we were exploring the park. And it's easy to see why too, with beautiful waters like this to fish out of. And of course, it also provides a very tasteful tribute to the veterans of the armed forces. While walking around the park and appreciating the many stunning views over the Cedar Lake, you can also check out some statues, a 155mm howitzer, which has seen action during World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam, and of course, a tank.
And there is actually a listing here called the Evil Tank of Nashua. That's a hard pass from me. No thanks. Instead of that, I opted to track down the not-so-evil Tank of Nashua. Way more my speed. The grass can be a bit tall out here sometimes. If I get more than 10 to 15 feet away from the dog, sometimes she can really blend right in there, especially with those brown ears. You gotta look for that little spot of white sticking out of the grass to see her.
And if she has a view of me hunting for the geocache, she will come no further, so I have to keep an eye on her to make sure she's still in there somewhere. Finally, under the failing light of the sunset, we finally reached Cedar Falls. We only had a few minutes available to us after reaching the entrance of town to appreciate some sights along the Cedar River before the sunlight failed completely. But what a fantastic view to be able to close out the day on. Sometimes I suspect it's just meant to be. And that is a wrap for our day. We made it to Cedar Falls, but only just barely. The last of our sunlight is fading quickly, but at least we got to appreciate this view right behind us before the sun goes down. It turned out to be a pretty good day. Like I thought, we had a lot of targets on our 190-mile route, and I was able to cut the ones that I thought were more time-consuming and less scenic, which I stand by, and bring us down into a condensed area where I could do the things we wanted to do in a good time. Those erratics, for example, were actually a really fun part of the day for me. I enjoyed seeing the different types of rocks we saw along the way, because each one was a different sample, which meant that it had come from a different glacier and during a different period. That's pretty cool by itself. Just because that sun's going down doesn't mean we're done for the day though. We still have a pretty good target list up ahead of us for the rest of Cedar Falls, and I think we have enough time to work through most of it. We still won't get to finish all of it, but there are a lot of good geocaches in this area, and I am looking forward to finishing it off here. Tomorrow morning we'll be starting bright and early, so we'll see you there. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.